Hello YouTube, this is Morgan, Airspeed Prime here at my next YouTube video. This is going to be my next vlog, which I believe I call Airspeed Vlogs. So yeah, this is going to be an avatar focused one. I'm just going to talk about a few things, 3 topics I have to talk about. First one, getting into it straight away, is basically my plans for avatar core videos going forward. Obviously I haven't had that many out right now because news has been better in the past few weeks, but outside of news, there's been nothing really else to really mention. There hasn't been a whole lot of discussion to be had outside of, oh, update, that's cool. But going forward, July is going to be a pretty packed month for Avatar merchandise and stuff like that. Obviously, San Diego Comic Con is next month, and there's going to be some big stuff at Comic Con with core related. So I'll have loads of videos up about that, more than likely. As well as that, there's a lot of merchandise going to be released next month. So the Search Part 2, I'll have a review up for that. The art book, I'll have a review up for that, assuming I can get my hands on it. And stuff like that. I think the soundtrack's out next month as well. I'll try and do something with that as well. Korra Endgame is out next month. Again, I'll try and have a video up of that. So expect more from me next month especially, and hopefully, we get some big news out of San Diego Comic Con, and we get a release date and stuff like that. But going forward, I suppose, into when Korra actually comes out, what can you expect from me and my channel? My channel's hasn't really been Korra focused of late because there hasn't been much to talk about, so it'll go back to being completely Avatar focused. I'll still do Transformers episode reviews and Turtles episode reviews, but more than likely I won't be doing many other kind of non-Avatar videos. So what you can expect when Korra comes out is more frequent news updates, probably, in terms of, I'll probably do one every week and just focus on all the news that there is. Then I'll be doing video reviews of every episode that comes out, and I'll probably do another type of video about each episode of Korra as well. But I don't want to kind of spoil that until we actually know when Korra's coming out. But it should be fun either way. And then obviously comics will still be coming out, so I'll still be reviewing them as well. And yeah, so that's basically my plan for my channel when Korra is coming out. Just put a lot more focus on it on my channel, like it was in the past. So, yep. On to my second topic, which links into the first one and the third one. I just want to talk a bit about Avatar: The Last Airbender Online.com. Most of you who follow my channel probably know that I am the head moderator, super moderator on that site, and that I do a lot of work over there with regards to keeping the community running, and as I said, head moderator, stuff like that, and main news post writer. But I haven't really been mentioning it of late on my channel about that. So that's what I'm here to basically talk about. Just that, if you rely on my videos for core news updates, but you want more, go to Avatar: The Last Airbender Online.com. I post the news there before I get around to doing videos because I think it's easier to get my opinions across when I first write up a news post, write it down, present the news to other people, then I know what to talk about when I go into the video. So all the news goes up on the site before I do these videos, so it's all there. As well as that, it's not just a news site, it's a whole forum, a whole community, and we do a lot of stuff there. It's definitely one of the friendliest Avatar communities out there. I know sometimes some of these communities can be a bit like it's a select few people together and there's no way you're going to get involved that much, that if you're new, you are the new person. But our community is so open and friendly about these sort of things. The whole introduce yourself section, and that everyone who posts pretty much always gets a good greeting from a lot of the members. Along with that, we do stuff like Avatar trivia all the time, and that's probably one of the things the community is best known for. That when the community is active, those community opinions are such a great thing that happen more or less every week or two, and they're so fun because we basically make the hardest questions possible, so everyone learns something from every Avatar trivia. As well as that, we have just general discussion on all sort of stuff. Korra, Avatar comics, there's fan fiction section, there's a cosplay section, there's an Avatar game section. So along with trivia, we have stuff like picture trivia. There's Avatar Hangman and all that sort of stuff. Loads of stuff to do on the site. Right now, it's kind of beginning to come a bit more active now after a lot of people kind of not becoming so active because of the lack of core news. But definitely, I recommend coming back. San Diego Comic Con's coming up. Everyone's going to be buzzing around that. It should be a fun place to be when the news is breaking at the con. So, yeah, Avatar: The Last Airbender online.com. As much as I do a lot of work there, and it may seem like I'm really biased there, but I was initially just a member on that site as well. It was just something I signed up for as a regular member, and then became a moderator and became someone who runs the site as well. So, I had some bad experiences on other fan sites, and I think it says a lot that this one I just really, really got into, so much so that I'm now helping to run the place. So I think that says a lot more than just me kind of explaining all the features, that it's just a very nice place to be. I'm really active on there, so if you want to interact with me, I post more Avatar stuff probably on the site than on my channel or anywhere else, so check that out. Then, linked into the site is the podcast. Now, again, this is something I haven't really mentioned that much. I'll be beginning to mention it at the end of some of my videos to say that we'll discuss it on the podcast. But, apart from one video I put up when it first started, like about a year and a half ago, I haven't really mentioned that much of it. So, the Avatar Online Podcast, that's the name of the podcast. It is the official podcast for Avatar: The Last Airbender online.com, so it's related to the site. I'm the main host, as well. Along with that, we have lots of other Avatar fans on there, varying from other moderators on the forums to just members of the forums, and even admins of other Avatar fan sites and stuff like that. We're pretty open with regards to getting new people on. So you can actually apply to be on the podcast on the forums as well. There's a podcast section. You can apply if you want to come on the podcast. Again, it's one of those things where we have a specific schedule in terms of we can only record between certain times. So if you could fit into there, we'll probably be able to have you on at some stage. So it's very open. But what is the podcast about? It's basically an Avatar radio show. If you don't know what a podcast is, it's effectively a internet radio show. Sometimes live, but mostly I think pre-recorded and then released through iTunes and stuff like that. Our podcast is pre-recorded simply because we don't really have the best internet regarding streaming it online live, so it's pre-recorded, and I think it works out better, that you get better quality show that after editing it goes up, it's pretty well put together. But the main format of the show is effectively, usual introductions, explain, this is its episode, whatever. Of late, we've been doing a thing where we've been counting the number of days since book 1 ended. So, on Sunday, when we record episode 56, it's going to be exactly a year since book 1 ended. So, it's only a year without Korra on Sunday. So, we've been doing that count for the past month or two. We also start the show with a kind of preview question about book 2, some speculation sort of stuff. Then we get into news, where we discuss all the news from the past week in depth with all our kind of panel that we have on for that week. And from there we get into listener questions. You can submit questions to the podcast. Basically anywhere you want. You can do it to me on YouTube, me on Tumblr, Airspeed Prime on Tumblr. You can do it to the 2 Facebook pages, Facebook.com/Avatar: The Last Airbender online, Facebook.com/Journey of Korra. The podcast email address is avataronlinepodcast@gmail.com. You can send questions into the podcast and we will answer them. And listener questions is one of the really fun sections, I think, of the podcast, especially when there's a lot of questions that vary completely. So you could go from talking about this one part of Avatar to discussing a big part of Korra to discussing something about the fandom. It's just a way for us to have really random, maybe, talking points throughout the podcast. we always include an intermission piece during the podcast. So if you ever listen to it, you'll note that after the listener question segment, it goes into about a 2-3 minute long kind of break, where basically I just record. I take a funny and interesting bit from the break. We keep recording during our kind of break where we just take the stress off. We're not like recording now. This isn't going to go fully on the podcast. And I just take a moment to like maybe go off topic, talk about random funny stuff. And I just take 2-3 minutes of that and put it in the middle of the podcast as a break from all the kind of heavy Avatar talk. And that's pretty fun sometimes. Just really funny stuff that happens time to time. Then the main section of the show is a discussion topic. Basically, since about episode 10, we've been going back through Avatar: The Last Airbender because, our podcast only started about a year and a half ago, so we haven't had a chance to discuss Avatar: The Last Airbender. So we discuss it in depth there, and the way we do it is that we discuss episodes randomly. So every week we choose an episode using a random number generator, and so it's a completely random episode that comes up. We've moved from like season 1, the start of season 1 to the end of season 3 from week to week, to the middle of book 2, back to book 1, and it just goes all over the place. And it's a very interesting way to discuss the series in that it you can almost telegraph the way the discussion's going to go, maybe if we did it in order. But the way we're doing it, it allows us to completely focus on what this one episode that happens anywhere in the series, what it does for the series as a whole. So we never get into a sort of state where we get to like, oh, these are 3 episodes in a row that I don't really like. I'm not going to really enjoy doing the podcast as much than for the next 3 weeks. You always know that maybe if it's not your favourite episode, you'll get something more out of it because you know that maybe something more interesting is going to come up next week, and it's really fun. As of now, I think we've gone through 41 episodes of the 61, and then depending on like what comes out during the week, sometimes we replace the episode discussion with, say, a discussion of one of the new comics that comes out. So the last one we discussed was The Search Part 1, which was one of our best podcasts we've done. And we've also had some specials, like we had a special where we discussed The Last Airbender movie, which was definitely, I think, one of the best podcasts we've like ever done, because as much as a lot of us didn't like the movie, I set up the discussion so that it wasn't just a we hate the movie podcast. Who do we have on it? We had myself, Callum, Rich, and Kelly on that podcast. And I think Rich and Kelly really didn't like the movie. They really hated the movie. Callum was just like fairly like meh on it. Like he doesn't mind it, doesn't hate it at the same time, doesn't like it too much. And then I was leaning more towards the positive on that. And like, I don't really hate the movie. It's just not amazing, but I think it's okay. So you had a very interesting style of opinion as we went through it. And I also asked everyone on the podcast to come up with positives and negatives. So you had me, the more positive guy on the podcast, giving my negatives on the movie, which are different than, like, say, Kelly and Rich's, who hated the movie because of my different opinion overall on it. At the same time, you have Rich and Kelly, who were more negative on the movie, giving their positives, which were different to my positives because they came at it from a position of really disliking the movie. So it was a very interesting podcast, and it also really kind of shows the atmosphere from the site coming through to the podcast, and that oftentimes when you mention the movie anywhere on the internet, it eventually just descends into I hate M. Night Shyamalan, I hate this movie, I hate you for liking it. Instead, we got into like some discussion, like there was a lot of disagreements on the podcast, but because of the way the things go on the site, because it's so friendly, we realised that we can have these differences in opinion without hating each other for it, and that was just one of those moments in the podcast where I was like, this is a big accomplishment for the podcast, and I think this is where it really shows that this is the Avatar Online podcast, the podcast for Avatar: The Last Airbender Online. Like, who else could have had such a fair discussion on the movie? And then so that's basically, that's the podcast. That's what we talk about on the podcast every week, that sort of stuff. And that's the thing, we do it every week. Every Sunday we put out a show. Like, I think we've only missed one Sunday, just completely like there was no podcast, and that was just because crazy stuff happened. I think two people, myself and one of the other host, internet wasn't working. I think two or three of the hosts that were meant to be on, something came up super last minute and they couldn't make it. So there was no way any of the hosts could have done a podcast. So over the course of like 1.5 years, basically there's been 1 week where there wasn't a podcast really, and so we're consistent. We put out good shows, and I definitely recommend viewing it. So, that's the end of my vlog. I'm gonna put a little links in the description, links to the podcasts, like where you can subscribe and stuff like that, iTunes, where you can get it on the site. Link to the site itself, where you can find all the news and stuff like that. But yeah, that's mainly what this video was about. I just really wanted to make it clear that, my channel is just an extension really of the site. All the news I talk about comes from the site. I first kind of discovered it by putting up news posts for the site. And again, all the news is discussed on the podcast. So there's a huge link where, like, if you really want to get the best out of my channel, I definitely think you should become a member of the site and listen to the podcast as well as watch my videos, because then you get just this complete avatar info, kind of all of it. Because, especially with the podcast and the site, you don't just get my opinions on stuff, you get other people's opinions. So that's all I have to say, and thanks for watching this video, and bye.